I'm founder and CEO of a company called BOL Foods. We are facing an obesity epidemic across this planet. I feel passionate about it because I feel privileged that I get the opportunity to go to work every single day and actually make a positive impact. Capitalism is here to stay. Yeah, we're trying to make a profit, but actually leave things a little bit better than we find them is something that I care about a lot.
As you stepped feet first into BOL, did you ever have that self-doubt?
You know, in the early years, I think I was a bit of a crap CEO, if I'm honest. It was nerve-wracking. I was leaving a really stable brand and I was heading into the unknown. I didn't know whether it was going to be a success, but no matter what happened, I didn't think we'd look back and regret it. I wanted the responsibility of being a founder. The COVID stuff was dark. Actually, a lot of the fridges where we were selling our products, they were like shut. No, I'm good at putting a brave face on things. I've been rocked a good few times.
Before we get started with the episode, our books are now open.
If you need help getting in front of the right people, finding your dream customers, or winning new business, we might be able to help.
Why not outsource your sales to We Have a Meeting? Just go to wehaveameeting.com.
Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Pleasure.
Thank you for joining us.
The Northern lads.
There we go.
Three Northern.
Three Northern lads. Yeah, I won't tell you where I was born until after, but we'll get into it. So I'm going to kick off with a big open question. Who are you and what problem do you solve?
My name's Paul Brown. I'm founder and CEO of a company called BOL Foods. And we're all about making nutritionally powerful food, no compromise, essentially to help busy people eat well. We are facing an obesity epidemic across this planet, and we just harness the power of Mother Nature, banging breakfast, lunch, dinner, made completely naturally if you don't have time to cook. So, just help people live a healthier, happier life, really.
Nice. And I guess to kick things off, why do you feel so passionate about solving this problem?
From a philosophical perspective, I got taught from a pretty early age that life whizzes by, and to actually be running a business that truly has meaning and purpose. We'll come on to it in a bit, but I actually half the size of the business to go 100% plant-based and take us really down the natural route. From both a people and planet perspective, I think we're facing some pretty big challenges at this moment in time. So I feel passionate about it because I feel privileged that I get the opportunity to go to work every single day and actually make a positive impact. Capitalism is here to stay. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But I think sustainable capitalism, where there is a triple bottom line, where, we're trying to make a profit, but actually leave things a little bit better than we find them is something that I care about a lot.
So take us back to the start. So where did you grow up? What were those early signs of there might be something entrepreneurial about you?
Well, my family are entrepreneurs. My dad started the first ever wine bar in Manchester.
Wow.
So yeah, all the pictures of Georgie Best drinking champagne and partying were, a lot of them were in my dad's bar.
Wow.
My mum was involved in catering. I came from an incredible family, full of love and support, and just encouraged to do whatever you want to do. The entrepreneurial side kind of, I guess, really started to fire up when I realised I wasn't going to get paid to play sport. Like most people, or a lot of people I know, grew up thinking going to play football for Man United or all these kind of dreams that often don't come to reality. So I actually went to university. I dropped out of university. I was studying sports science there, and I moved over to California to qualify as a snowboard instructor. I actually became a snowboard instructor. I lasted 1 week. I was racing border cross, which for your audience that don't do a lot of skiing and snowboarding, essentially getting down the mountain, going over massive jumps as quick as you can. And I broke every bone in my wrist, dislocated my elbow. And I was genuinely nearly killed myself. I was in and out of hospital for the best part of a year. I had a cast on up to my shoulder, but I was lucky because I had a helmet on. I was essentially it was just bone injuries I had. But I moved from Mammoth Mountain, where I was teaching, to Los Angeles, and because I was traveling, travel insurance paid for everything, and I managed to convince my mum that I should stay in Los Angeles as a 21-year-old and work out what the next move was. And that was there that I wrote a business plan to start a food business. So in California, people were living, this is back like 21 year, 22, 23 years ago, living pretty much like London is now, or Manchester, wherever, these big cities, a lot of gyms, a lot of people eating, drinking slightly healthier than perhaps was the norm. So I started like I wrote a business plan to start like a pod Itsu prep, but a healthy version of that. Came back to Manchester, started working in the back of a cafe, ironically, like flipping bacon and eggs for people, learning how to run like a cafe. Couldn't get the business going and was skint. And Innocent Drinks had just launched. So I thought I'll go and get a job for them. So I knocked on the door at Fruit Towers in Goldhawk Road in West London and met the three founders. They were only going less than a year. Managed to convince them to give me a job. So went into one of those silly Dumb and Dumber vehicles. You see, you got a picture of on the wall, one of the vehicles, and drove up to Manchester, started selling them out of the back of a van.
Wow.
So even though I was, that wasn't my business, I was part of a small business that became obviously hugely popular. And I guess we'll come on how I started BOL after that.
There's a few things that you mentioned there. The thing that jumped out straight away is you said, philosophically, it was instilled in you from an early age that life whizzes by.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Well, my dad died at quite an early age, which had a huge impact on me. My nan always used to say, even a long life is short. So I guess I've always had a bit of a growth mindset. I try and bring as much energy to every single situation I'm in, and just make the most of things. So I guess, the short answer to that is, I think dealing with, something pretty traumatic at an early age of your life makes you realize you're not bulletproof. And up until that moment, I think I probably, I think I changed a lot from that moment.
So it feels like, Paul, there's this connection between like being in California, thinking about like the pod food and like creating your own Itsu, and then going to Innocent, and then the path that you're on now. Did you feel like whatever path of entrepreneurship that you took, it would always end up in some kind of food movement?
Less about food, more about, I guess, health and wellness. I've always been pretty obsessed with sport, and I guess the nutrition is a key part of being decent at sport. And it was always about just kind of health, wellness, sport, nutrition. I guess because the business plan was in food and drink, and I saw a gap in the market to essentially create a lot of what's happening now in big cities, and then learned the FMCG way at Innocent. I was there for nearly 15 years, but I literally didn't even know what FMCG was when I knocked on that door. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I was walking into, in my opinion, the best business school on the planet. Three incredible founders. They've gone on to become great mates of mine, investors in BOL. So I guess it was just a natural move for me to start my own business in food and drink after all that experience.
Nice. So 15 years at Innocent, I imagine that was, I don't know if we'd even have enough time on this podcast to get through like all the lessons and the full story, but
No.
Your entry point, I guess, what were you brought in initially to solve, and then how did that grow through the ranks at your time at Innocent?
So my job originally was a business development manager. I was looking after everything north of London because Innocent was only selling in London at the time, and I was on the road selling. So I was setting up the wholesalers, cold calling places. It was, to begin with, was like sandwich shops and delicatessens and those kind of independent places that insurgent challenger brands win listings in. And then I was like, well, I may as well go and knock on the door at Asda and Morrison's and Co-op and on all these other bigger companies, Boots, Costa, all these other bigger chains, and then started to sell the brand into those as well. So in terms of the problem I was solving, it was it was growing sales. Sales is the lifeblood of any business, and I was there to to sell the product. So my business title was Northern Star. So everyone had a business title that was in relation to fruit, so star fruit. And yeah, so it was in 2008 that my role for the first 7-8 years was mainly on the selling side, and then 2008 I transitioned into a role as more general management, launching the food for Innocent, and that's when I started to get experience in a lot of parts of the business outside of pure sales.
So when you look back now at that 15-year stretch, what are the things that you picked up that were instrumental in starting your own business?
I honestly could write a book about that, and I might well do it in the future because the list is so long. But if I whittle it down to, let's say, the first three things that spring to mind, the first one is around people. Like there was something about the energy that those three founders brought to that business that attracted so many great people, and the culture that was created that is absolutely incredible. And there are so many people who've gone on to work at really exciting businesses who trod those boards at Innocent Drinks back in the day. So nothing more important than the people. A close second is the product. Like we obsessed around the product, everything from the branding of the product to the innovation pipeline to the packaging. It was all just getting the product into a position where we were able to tell amazing stories about it. And genuinely, I don't want to make it sound like a cult, but it did feel like that at times. Like we were so bought in. And that kind of brings me to my third point, which is just around having a really big vision and a purpose, and getting those group of people together who truly believe in the why and have ambitions to take the brand from such humble beginnings to what became a global brand. Like it was insane. So I mean, I am 99% certain if I'd started my business pre that time at Innocent, it would have lasted less than a year. I've had all this experience, and I find some weeks, most days actually, it's like turning around and standing on a rake. It is so hard running your own business. I've had all this experience, so I've just got nothing but the utmost of respect for people that start their own businesses, coming out of school, coming out of university. I had a trial run at it and still find it tough, but it's it was a real blessing.
Nice. When was the first seed of BOL then? When did that first come into your head?
For people that don't know the story, Innocent, when it started, was all about the smoothies and the juice. And it was in 2008 they launched into food. So launched a range of veg pots that in the big scheme of things was never huge for Innocent. I mean, tens of millions of pounds, but we're talking about a massive brand. And I guess the seed that it could be my time was when it became clear that Coca-Cola were going to ultimately take over Innocent. So that seed started in around 2010, 2011, and I ultimately left Innocent in 2015. So, it didn't need to be Einstein to know that the world's biggest drinks brand's buying you and they don't do food. So I'm looking after this bit of the business that they're not going to like, they're not going to want to run. So is there a deal to be done here? So I tried to complete a formal management buyout of that business and was told no. So it was actually James Quincy, who's now running global Coca-Cola, and Douglas Lamont, who was CEO of Innocent at the time. He's now running Tony's Chocolonely. Was trying to hustle a deal out of those guys to do a management buyout, and it wasn't gonna happen for lots of different reasons. So I stayed right up until the moment that Innocent fully took over. Coke fully took over Innocent, and then elegantly shut that business down and started on my own. So the seed probably started 4 or 5 years before it actually came to fruition. And that's definitely something I've learned a lot in my life, that things take longer than you want, and you've got to have a lot of grit and resilience and determination, and you've got to persevere with stuff that you really want. Because most of the things that I've got in life have taken a lot longer than I thought it would be to get them.
So let's go to that moment then, Paul. So it's just before you've gone out on your own, and you're paint a picture of what your life looks like. Where are you just before you leave Innocent and you jump straight into BOL?
Where am I? So I'm living in South Manchester. Recently married a couple of years. One baby in tow, pregnant wife, moving to a new part of London. It was absolutely hectic, crazy. I don't quite know how I got through it looking back now, but it was nerve wracking. I was leaving a really stable brand. I've managed to build myself up to director levels, stable salary, all the trimmings that come with that, and security to a certain extent. And I was heading into the unknown at the same time as I was personally, taking on the biggest responsibility you're ever going to take on, which is becoming parents. So in terms of taking you back to that place, it was pretty scary.
And then I guess I'm always big on like evidence. So then if you think about you've had this amazing career at Innocent, but if you think about your entrepreneurial journey, the only evidence of setting up a business, it hadn't quite worked out. So I guess as you stepped feet first into BOL, did you ever have that self-doubt of what happens if this doesn't work? I've got a pregnant partner, these risks. How did you, I guess, handle that in a monologue of what might happen, what might not?
Brilliant. So I talked to pals about this, and it's back to the question around that slightly like philosophical mindset and that growth mindset. My view was that I kind of thought it was 50-50, right? I didn't know whether it was going to be a success, but I felt in exactly the same way as what I said to the people that I recruited to join me in those early days. Like, no matter what happened, I didn't think we'd look back and regret it. So I was going to throw everything at it being a success. But if it failed, and from a failure perspective, let's break it down to its most rational level, no business, then I think I was then going to be at a crossroads like everybody else who's a startup business that then has to dust off their CV and start looking again. I personally think it sets you up. For me, it was going to be, okay, well, I've tried to do it my own way and it's not worked out, so I'll try and start another business, or it's not worked out, I'll go and work for another company. So you're never in control, right? Who would have known that from 2015 when we set the business up, that the amount of stuff that would happen over this last decade, from COVID to the wars, like I don't need to list them all, but it's been quite a challenging time to be an entrepreneur over the last decade. And we've got through it. But even if we hadn't have got through it, I still think it was the right move for me to kind of, it's not about just scratching that entrepreneurial itch. I wanted the responsibility of being a founder. And I really felt passionate about, there was unfinished business. I'd learned how to make this amazing range of products in the world of food and drink, and I knew we could take it to the next level, and hopefully that's what people think we've done.
Can you take us to, was there a first concept product, and how you got that launch? How did the first bit start?
So, and this is the bit that's quite unique, and this, I wouldn't say it's the easy bit, but it is definitely much easier for me than it is for most other people, because we had a bit of a jogging start. So I had those Innocent pots that, with the blessing of Coke and with the blessing of Innocent, I was exiting. So I was quite literally going to meetings like with Tesco and to our manufacturing partners and saying, here's some big news for you. In 6 months, we're going to be exiting this part of the business. But to replace it, I'm going to start my own brand, and I'd love the opportunity to pitch it to you here and now. So I was just so lucky, and I did it in a way that thankfully convinced the big, some of the big retailers and the people in the industry to go, okay, well, I'll back that and invest in it and give it some shelf space. So Fundamentally, our original product range were very similar to the innocent veg pots that I was exiting, and I've always been very open and proud about that. It's we were only exiting it obviously because of the corporate shift in ownership that was happening there.
Were there any relationships that you didn't have in the innocent days that you needed to get to make it work?
Yeah, definitely, because we changed our entire supply chain. I had to get lots of investment into the business. That was something I'd not done before, so that was obviously a real key relationship. I had a good amount of direct relationships with the retailers themselves, which helped, but you can never really rely on that because it changes so quickly. The buyers, the people that ultimately make the decisions. So, like I said, definitely had a jogging start at it, but it wasn't quite as easy as maybe I'm looking back on with rose tinted glasses now.
We are entering a new era of outbound.
4 years in, We Have a Meeting has leveled up our entire offer. That's why multi-billion-pound brands trust us.
And we book meetings with Netflix, Spotify, Facebook, even Barcelona Football Club.
We've helped close deals up to 950,000.
We're doing it all. Phone, LinkedIn, email, direct mail. And there's a few weird and wonderful possibilities that we're keeping in our back pocket. So if you're struggling to get in front of the right people at the right time, inquire today. I want to talk about the funding journey, because there will be founders that are watching this, and probably more specifically in the food and drink space. What's the knowledge that you wish you could have given yourself before you went through that funding journey when it came to raising investment?
I mean, the thing that jumps out initially when you ask that question is that money burns quicker than every time we've done a forecast. And bear in mind, my business partner, he's the numbers guy. He trained. He didn't drop out of university. He was a straight A student. EY, Procter and Gamble, Innocent, and so he's as good as it gets in the industry. And it just seems to burn quicker than every forecast we do. It seems to not quite hit what you think. So I guess the knowledge in terms of a specific tip would be kind of raise as much as you can when you can. I've done things differently. I've not followed the normal route. Most of the capital I've raised over the years has been from people I know, and that isn't just the seed rounds of friends and family. That I'm talking about the entire funding of the business, and it's worked really well. We've managed to get investors in that have been able to bring a decent amount of expertise as well, and have left us as the board to run the business. We do have an investor board. We used to have it every 3 months. It's now every 6 months. The importance of having a good relationship with your investors, and that doesn't mean you always need to get people that you know beforehand, but I've got a lot of friends, and I obviously won't be naming them now, but it feels like most of their stress comes from dealing with their investors. So I would just straight up front, like a proper no-knob policy when it comes to getting investment. Like, even if someone's going to give you the money, if they're going to create hassle for you and you got to work that out, then don't take it, because that control that you need as an entrepreneur, as a founder, to mold things as you want, you need to be focused on the market, whether that is a product, whether it's a service, whatever the industry is. Obviously for me it's FMCG. I don't need to be looking over my shoulder. My investors know that they are never going to invest in anybody that tries harder than me, that we've got a team that do things as as professionally as it gets. There's a lot of investors invest in loads of businesses. We kind of really run it on a tight ship. So doesn't mean we're always going to deliver what we say, but we're definitely going to try, and we need to focus on out there, not over the shoulder.
So as you were talking there, Paul, and I'm thinking about the audience listening to this at home, and I'll give my point of view in terms of like how I feel probably watching Dragon's Den, because I have no knowledge of this space at all. But if somebody's listening from home, they're thinking, well, he left Innocent, he had this brilliant idea, he knew people, so he was getting into Morrison, Sainsbury's, and he had the funding. I remember thinking, surely if this Dragon's Den idea can just get into Sainsbury's, well, you've made it, your quid's in, you're on the shelf, you're laughing. I imagine from your point of view, even having the money and getting on the shelves, that's probably where it feels like a lot of the hard work actually sells. So like when you think about marketing and bringing BOL to the consumer, how have you approached that?
So try and answer this question to make it as helpful as possible for your audience. You walk into a big Sainsbury's or Tesco, whatever it might be, there's circa 25 to 30,000 SKUs on the shelf. You getting that listing is just the beginning. You've then got to drive that sales velocity. There's obviously only a finite amount of space. There's a lot of competition. Ironically, the supermarkets themselves are obviously creating, a growing importance on own label, on their own brands. And then there's the bigger brands and then the smaller brands. So getting onto the shelf is like that's stage one. Actually then driving the sales is another world. And that kind of links to your question. Obviously on day one, on the 30th of April, 2015, when our product was on the shelves of some of those aforementioned supermarkets, the awareness for the brand BOL, well, it's not quite zero. It's friends and family that know what we're doing, but other than the founding team and friends and family, no one knows who or what BOL is and what we stand for and why they should even pick us up, look at us, buy us. So using those funds in those early days to drive that top funnel of marketing, that awareness level, and then getting all the way down to sales stimulating and getting people to pick it up off the shelf is, yeah, that's a seriously tough job. I don't think, and again, this is where I come back to the question around what some of those learnings. In those early days, you've got your product on shelf, the packaging, like it's so important to try to put as much as possible into that packaging so it stands out. Obviously, it's not that profound to say it, but it amazes me how many times I think so much more could be put into the packaging itself, because that is your billboard, right? That is the last moment of truth when someone is stood in a supermarket. They're going to buy you, not buy you. It's largely going to be, are you kind of shouting loud and proud from the shelf? So, yeah, you can burn through a lot of money very quickly, and things have changed now. You can obviously use social media very differently to what it was like in the early days of my career. But all of that exciting stuff, which we might talk about in a bit, is great, but don't make the main thing the main thing, and that's nail that product proposition from day one if you can. And if it isn't perfect, and it probably won't be, don't be afraid to iterate and improve. Big fan of the Kaizen, Japanese proverb of self-improvement. So just keep trying to make it better and better.
Nice. And how did you approach the innovation when you're thinking, right, okay, we need awareness now? And like you say, like 2015 to 2025, very different in terms of where you can probably throw your money at. How were you attacking it back there to get eyes on the product?
So we actually innovated our product portfolio, really quite quickly. So for me, whilst the veg pots that we originally launched with, and obviously I did have recipes with meat, fish, and dairy in as well. So we had a Carolyn coconut chicken, we had a Jamaican jerk chicken, and we can talk about that if you want to in a bit. But we launched into salads, we launched into fresh soup, obviously more recently launched into smart food with our power shakes. So for me, rather than kind of investing too much in the marketing of the portfolio that we had, I expanded and took the range into new categories quite quickly. And there's definitely a lot that we did and launched into that isn't around now. But for me, that was just building up the awareness for what BOL stood for, because there's nothing better than someone actually trying your product. Like, they can see it on a TV advert, not that we could afford TV, or they can hear an influencer shouting about how amazing it is, but to get the product into someone's hands. So whether that was investing in the promotions at Fixture, we did a lot of sampling as well. But launching into these multiple categories really helped us build the brand, where I wouldn't go as far as to say that we're famous now, but for people that do know us, they know what they're going to get. They know that if they do look on the back, all of the ingredients are going to be natural ingredients that they're going to understand and be able to pronounce. They know it's going to be more really nutrient dense. So every one of our products is high in fiber, high in protein, and taste flipping amazing. So kind of, that product side of obsession that we've had from the beginning has really stood us in good stead.
So that innovation and trying out different things, I suppose for people listening, how do you spot the idea that's worth testing, and then how do you test it?
My favorite part of the job, and I've not done it for years now, so maybe I need to get back out there, but I have been back out to California a few times. I've got a lot of friends out there from back in the day, and so I kind of called those like my food safaris. So rather than read Mintel reports, and no offense to Mintel and all that, and they provide some great stuff, but I went out there and saw with my own eyes, the salad concept came from seeing people with the salad jars over in America, and the latest range, our power shakes, that again just came from me being in California and seeing people, drink all of these kind of protein shakes and meal replacement drinks, but they were made naturally, and me kind of coming back with the team and saying, well, why can't we do something like this? And so I kind of like to be in amongst it and feel and see what's working, and then put our own slants on things. I think people get confused sometimes, the difference between innovation and invention. There's not that many times you're going to invent something that hasn't been around. Even back to Innocent. Yeah, one's kind of, oh yeah, you started the smoothie. We didn't start making smoothies. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people putting through and blending it. So I don't think we've ever invented anything. But for example, our power shakes, Huel, who's the market leader globally in this complete nutrition drink space, clearly doing an amazing job. But everywhere, we've just done it slightly differently to them. So just thinking innovatively. Byron Sharp is one of my favorite authors. Wrote an amazing book saying how brands build, and that's definitely, if you're gonna come into the food and drink space and you're gonna come up with an idea, doing something that's not so wacky and is going to have a mass market appeal generally is going to be kind of having a category entry point that's tweaking something that's already doing pretty good. So our complete nutrition drinks are, a step up from a traditional protein shake. Yeah, it's innovative. I'm so proud about what we've done. They taste amazing. Globally, they're the only nutritionally complete meal that's ready to drink, that is made of real ingredients, completely natural. But it's not like we've invented something so crazy that people are not going to know what it is.
Where's talking about innovation and developing lines and things like that? There's obviously a point where the meat and the fish got turned off.
Yeah.
And probably from the outside, that looks like an unusual choice.
Yeah.
But what was the rationale behind that? Why did that come about?
Well, it's definitely unusual because I did it in 2017, 18. First couple of years, we smashed all of our targets. We were profitable. And then I watched Cowspiracy, read books like Michael McGregor's How Not to Die, and was pretty amazed that the negative impact that an industrial food system is having on the planet. So almost half the earth in some way, shape or form is being used for animal agriculture. The amount of water we use for 2 months of over 2 months of showering goes into one hamburger. So it was kind of like, oh wow, felt a bit embarrassed, to be honest with you. I've been working in the industry so long. I was and I was so ignorant to some of this stuff. So for me, it wasn't unusual because it just reignited even more passion for, we can make 100% plant-based food. It's largely going to be loved by meat eaters. I'm got nothing but respect for vegans, and but we're not about trying to make it easy for more vegans to eat more vegan food. We're about going, well, you can have an amazing soup, and the fact that it doesn't have chicken in it doesn't matter, because it's going to have more nutrition in than any other prepared soup in the market, and it will go toe to toe from a taste perspective as well. So it was definitely not a decision that went down well with investors, because we quite literally halved our run rates overnight, and it was a genuine strategic pivot. Even even the likes of Tesco were pretty surprised when I was going in and saying, these recipes that are selling really well, we're going to stop making those. And they were like, what are you going to replace them with? I was like, well, we've not worked that out yet, but give us a bit of time. We're gonna innovate, and we're gonna do something. And then obviously, from a timeline perspective, a few years after that, COVID happened, and the vegan movement really started to motor. I've said previously on interviews, I knew it was never going to last. I think a lot of the problem with a lot of the vegan products that have been made are, is how much they've been processed, and how much salt and oil and sugar. And if you're choosing that route for the animals, then that's great. You don't care. But if you're choosing it for planetary reasons or health reasons, then there's probably too many kind of flaws in those products to get that long-term sustainable traction. So we've always been really focused from 2018 on the keeping things as natural and as minimally processed as possible. As soon as you're chopping off the spinach leaf or pulling the broccoli out of the ground or whatever it is, you're beginning the processing, right? So we kind of keep things as real as possible.
So I just want to rewind just slightly. So that conversation with the investors, I'd love to be a fly on the wall, but you're obviously from a sales background. So how did you articulate yourself in a way that your passion was the right choice? Because if we look at it from a CEO standpoint or a board, I'm going, this is crazy, and this is just your passion that's driving this. How did you navigate those conversations to say this is definitely right?
With difficulty, in some instances, but fundamentally, I'd set the business up to make the big decisions. So yeah, I was recommended it and needed a level of board approval, but they'd invested in me and the team to deliver. So we had to provide stats and insight that were going to demonstrate that we weren't completely losing my mind, and their hard-earned money was going to ROI over time. Well, that judgment day is still to come, but even though they might not like the idea of a decision that was going to half the sales of the business, they got the fact that, and most people are understanding it now, right? We are, the number one risk of death in America is food, right? Like this generation, what is it? It's from like 1850 to now, the average life expectancy. So in 1850, average life expectancy is around 40, and the average life expectancy each decade is increased by a couple of years, every single decade. And then the last decade has actually started to go backwards. So we could be the first generation for a few hundred years to not be outliving our previous generations in terms of average. And the main reason for that is the food that we eat. Like it links back to the obesity epidemic and some of those lifestyle choices that we're not as a species necessarily doing a great job of. So I'm kind of like, well, we can make a product when people are short on time that they can choose and they can eat, and is actually really good for them. And so even though it was going to be a bit of a speed bump from a sales perspective, managed to kind of get them over the line that there was still, really good business model in this. And actually it was going to stand for so much more than what we were doing previously. But it feels like a lifetime ago now. That was like, how long ago? 7-8 years. And yeah, there's a lot happened in between. But I think that's the point. If you're going to go down the founder route, then you need to make some really tough decisions at time. And if they're authentic and you passionately believe in them, then you've got to know it's gonna be tricky to get it through at times. But once I've made the decision, I was gonna get it through. But clearly, out of respect, needed to get all the investors on board.
The way that you talk and the way that you come across, Paul, on and off camera, you strike me as like an optimist through and through. So in the 10 years of building BOL, it feels like even if there have been times that have been tough or hard, it feels like none of them have rocked you.
No, I'm good at putting a brave face on things. I've been rocked a good few times. The COVID stuff was dark, as it was for so many people, right? It's most of our products were being made for young professionals or students or people that were charging around, and suddenly it was like, actually, a lot of the fridges where we were selling our products, say a Costa coffee, for example, our salads were in, they were like shut, so that then there's no sales line, and you're dealing with the other side of things from a supply chain perspective. There was a lot of issues with costs and people that were going to be able to kind of pull the vegetables out of the ground, all the way through to the team who were dealing with the kind of mental health challenges of being stuck in your flat the whole time. And so, yeah, no, it's definitely, I don't take lightly the responsibility of being a CEO and having all of the pressures that come with that. But I'm good at putting things into perspective. Like, not that hard to, when you're feeling a little bit downbeat, to open a newspaper and realize there's a lot of people around the planet in a much harder position than I was in. So I'm kind of, my self-talk, I have those moments like we all do, but my self-talk of going, no, snap out of it and find a growth opportunity here is just, I've just built that in me over the years.
The other thing that's come across is this team ethos that you picked up from your innocent days. You said it's like a really vital piece. How have you brought that over to BOL? What could you teach people about building a good team?
Well, I care about it deeply. I've definitely not got it right. In the early years, I think I was a bit of a crap CEO, if I'm honest. I've got an intensity about me that I think was pretty full on for some of the early stage team. I'm definitely always going to be as straight talking as anybody who works in the industry, and I will overinvest time, money, effort in trying to make people feel as as happy and as the culture we've got at BOL at the moment is amazing. 30 people on the payroll, and the vibe is as good as it's ever been. But it's taken a lot to get there. Understanding that not everyone is made up like we are with that mentality of how things should be. So being pragmatic, adopting like hybrid working. I'm a little bit more old school. I kind of leave home, work, go to the office, and just trying to get a balance with what I believe is right and how we want to do things, but also understanding that there's different generations who want things to be done differently. So I've got someone in my team, Sarah, who helps kind of bridge that gap of understanding, okay, well, what is it the team want from a learning, growth, overall culture perspective. And so we're always making changes to make it an even better place to work. But definitely, hands up, I'm still work in progress.
So you said intensity, then you described it. What's an example of intensity?
In those early years, in particular, it was getting into work stupid o'clock in the morning, working till silly o'clock at night. Yeah, I think there was probably a bit of an expectation from me that everybody else was going to care as much as I did, and definitely they were unreal. But we probably were on an intensity of workload and determination to do things that meant maybe the hours were a bit ridiculous, and so that's what I mean when I mean intensity. It's just kind of a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because I honestly need to pinch myself every single day that I've got this team of people who truly care. Like, we have global ambitions to make BOL a brand that's available across the world. We've got a deep-rooted belief that we can help busy people eat well, and a really clear mission around making this nutritionally powerful food without compromise. But like the thing that I'm saying, I pinch myself about, like the amount people put into life, we call it the boller coaster, is I never take it for granted. And so I will always just try and think of ways to, retain the team, make them happier. So it's definitely different to how it was in the early years.
Our book is out now. Sales is Therapy is available everywhere for people who are looking to get better at communicating,
asking better questions, closing more deals, and bringing in more clients.
Beware, it is not for the faint of heart or for closed-minded people.
You can buy it in all good shops, links below.
So the problem that you're solving in terms of like making things easier for people and making a healthier alternative, there are obviously lots of other people that are trying to do this, and there are probably going to be more people coming through the ranks and seeing what you're doing in other companies, and that kind of sets the path. How do you think about competitors?
Love them. I see competitors as a gift. Like you get the opportunity to learn from them. I honestly, we just like chapeau to all the other businesses, small or big. Like I just don't, I don't think it's everyone is on the hustle, right? So whether it's us competing with a brand that's owned by a Nestle, world's biggest food brand, or a startup, it's like I've just chapeau, respect. They're trying to do what we're trying to do. That's win the hearts and minds of people across the UK and the globe. And it's just not healthy in any way, shape, or form to have anything but respect for them. So that's how I see competition.
So we've sat here on this same table with like business owners where it feels like the mission is, I want a sale, I want to turn over X amount of million, or I want this kind of exit. It feels like the mission here is like bigger for you, and I think that passion pulls through. I guess when you think of BOL and you think about your career, what's the end game? What's the end goal for you?
Difficult one for me. That I remember the Nike advert, there is no finish line. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to come across like all evangelical. There is a commercial side to our business, and we will only survive if we are at our best and we can put products out there that create category value, and we'll bring our best. The competition will bring their best. For us to my overall aim for the brand in terms of an end game would be when someone taps us on the shoulder and says, okay, well done, you are now the Earth's #1 naturally plant-powered food brand. So we are quite a long way off that now. So there is a long way for us to achieve that. Would there be a moment over the next 3, 5, 10 years where there's funding coming into the business that allows us to fast track that? I wouldn't say that's necessarily an end game, but an event like that, absolutely, I could see that happening over the next few years. But that would be as close to putting any form of kind of finish line on things. I'm, unfinished business for me. I was going to say I'm not going to get a call up for Man United nowadays, but I might do. It was so crap. I reckon I could do a job in that midfield. So yeah, This is what I want to be doing, and I'm going to put everything into it to get us into that position. So we've just won a listing in Albert Heijn, which is for listeners that don't know, it's the biggest supermarket in the Netherlands. So we're going to over 700 stores. Our 3 power shakes, that's launching in 10 days' time. So we're now UK, Ireland, and then the Benelux. That's obviously Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg. So I'm as excited about that as I felt I was when the business first launched. We have a boller day every single year. So once a year we go, we have an international trip. So we kind of obviously do it on as cheap as possible, but we kind of go surfing in Lisbon or go, camping somewhere in the UK, kind of one UK, one abroad. So this holiday is to Amsterdam in a couple of weeks' time.
Wow,
so I've taken the team out there. I know, be careful of all the bikes that are whizzing around. So we're going to go out there and create content and have a laugh together. So yeah, I've still got the energy, a lot of energy for this, and I'm the right man to be leading things at the moment. But who knows how that might change in the future.
So some of what you've done is this going away and spotting the trends in other places and the things that are working and kind of bringing them back. What do you think are those next trends in food and drink in the next 5 years? Looking forward, what will we be seeing?
Honestly, my brain goes into so many different areas, from thinking about mushrooms to CBD trends. I'm like obsessive with, gut health and the microbiome and all the rituals I have to keep me kind of functioning at the level I want to be functioning at. But yeah, I just keep coming back to the natural. Like I just think you can't move for artificial this, artificial that. And yeah, so from my perspective, I would love the trend to be a little bit more back to Mother Nature, and eating a little bit more, from the ground. I hope that is where things go, because call me old school, but I'm not that excited about just popping a pill and that being my nutrition for the day. I was reading really interesting stats the other day about the whole GLP-1 change and Ozempic and all this stuff. And the prediction is by 2030, 30% of UK adults are going to in some way, shape or form be on some of this weight loss medication, and this weight loss medication suppresses people's appetites, kind of the whole point. So I mean that is huge. That's kind of a massive impact on the industry. So brands, products that can be making the most kind of nutrient dense food, with as fewer calories as possible, is probably going to be a trend that in 5-10 years people are going to be like, oh yeah, that was genius.
Is that the kind of thing that, obviously in the business world at the minute there's a lot of talk about AI, but is that kind of innovation the stuff that in the food industry is like, oh shit, what are we going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people are probably thinking, oh shit, not us, because actually I'm just trying to manifest, I guess, a version of what hopefully is going to benefit us. That I was in the US, people are going to go, what the hell is he on about now? There is not a huge amount of difference between death row meals and the average US diet.
Wow.
Okay, so we are not eating great as a species. So I would love the trend. A bit like smoking. If you look at the curves on lung cancer now, it's actually starting to reduce for the first time, properly reduce. I don't want to throw my parents under the bus, but it was like being in the car and them gapping away, and just things have changed, right? And people have realized, oh, that's not that great for you. And I hope that happens with food and drink as well. I hope people realize that you can't keep putting so much artificial nonsense into your body and living the life you want to lead. So with HFSS coming through and people banging the drum about ultra processed food, I guess it used to be called junk food in our day. I just hope people start to either cook more. Now, I've always said that for BOL, if you have time to grow your own vegetables and cook, never ever buy a bowl, because there's nothing better than doing it yourself. If you don't have time, then we'll definitely go toe to toe with anything that you'll get off Deliveroo or wherever else. But I hope the trend goes a bit more back to previous generations.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Paul. So we end the podcast in the same way. I guess if you were to leave the audience with one question they should be asking themselves, what would you leave them with?
I guess the thing that springs to mind for me is we have a finite amount of time on this beautiful planet. So for me, the question would be, what can you as an individual do to get as much out of each and every day that we've got on this planet that gives you the fulfillment you want, and also actually leaves things a little bit better than how you find them. And at both a kind of personal and professional level, starting to find the answer to that question, which I'm doing sometimes, and sometimes I'm not. But just like kind of, I'm a dad of 3. That kind of having a positive impact, I think, is a really, really important question to ask ourselves. So, and it feels like lots more people are starting to ask that question, and whether it's the B Corp movement or whatever it might be, there's more to life than just making money.
Beautiful. Paul, thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you, or I was going to say if they want to buy some of your products, where can they go? But I'm sure you'll be listing every store in the UK.
There's still a good few we're not in, but so it's BOL Foods, BOL and Foods, all the usual social media handles. I'm pretty much off social media for my own mental health. So I'm find me on LinkedIn if anyone wants to tap me up personally. And then we're in, as I said, lots of big shops around the UK, and soon a few in Amsterdam as well. So pretty pumped about that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot.